And now, more You Talk. Now,
welcome to You Talk. I'm stoked about the show today. We've got an amazing guest. You're going to enjoy it. You really will. I'm telling you right now. So our guest on the show today is Kevin Lyman. And he is the founder, operator of the Kevin Lyman Group, which is a live production and brand strategy company. His most notable live event is the Vans Warped Tour, the longest running music festival tour in North America. It was very cool. I hope you had a chance to catch it. And hopefully, maybe something will come back again. He teaches at USC School of Music and is the host of My Warped Tour podcast. I'm telling you, the guy's busy, and he's with us today. He also launched the Fendmovement. And again, I'm glad you're with us because we're going to talk about some very cool stuff. Kevin,
how are you?
Welcome to You Talk. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, just got home from school, grabbed a little dinner, jumping on with you, and then I'll be into it with some capstones. We're getting close to the end of the semester, so we've got a couple meetings with some students right after I speak with you.
Oh, thanks for taking time. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you. Good to hear your voice. And with everything that you're doing, well, let's jump into it. Vans Warped Tour ran for 25 years. I think we were on it the last 4 or 5 years. How did it get started?
Well, I mean, it was, I'd been working in the music industry about 12 years and, putting on shows around Los Angeles, basically as a promoter, rep, production person. Was lucky enough to get to go on the first Lollapalooza touring festival in 1991. I was the stage manager. And then around 1995, I saw this convergence of music and sports coming along and said, this is my chance to step out and try something myself. Went out and, really started that philosophy I've kind of had in life of philanthropy, education, and music. Yeah. This gave me a platform to kind of take on the road. And I was hoping to maybe go, 1 year or 2 years and go get that proverbial real job, that people tell you need.
Yeah.
Your parents say, is that a real job? And I don't know when it finally,
I love it.
It finally clicked over that it was a real job. And then we were lucky enough to get a great run with it. I ended up with a great partner in Vans. I got to work with a ton of great people along the way. And a lot of these people, they were starting out in the business. And by giving them, they worked with me, they worked in the office, by giving them a chance. And now, I look around the country and it's nice to see, I guess people go, what's your legacy after all these years, is going backstage and seeing all these people I knew running their own backstages now and running their own events. And I think that's what led to me, fortunately, and I feel very fortunate to have got an opportunity to go teach at USC. It was right crossing over while I was kind of winding down Warped and teaching. And during that pandemic, I'll tell you, it was nice to have something to get up and do every day. I know a lot of my friends, we had about 92% unemployment in our world. No. But it's great to see everyone back working. But now I'm in a lucky position where I'm getting a lot of my young students, getting their first opportunities working events.
Oh, nice.
I know some of them are working out at Coachella right now. Some are working festivals around Los Angeles. So that's where I'm at now, kind of maybe helping that next generation get started. And then the people that worked for me that are now hiring, starting to hire that generation.
That's cool. And what better thing to be involved in? I mean, our time at the Warped Tour those years was amazing. I mean, we met some great people, heard great music, and developed some friendships. And being able to work along with you and be there to encourage people, and it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. If you think through the years, this is a kind of a loaded question, but is there one or two moments that kind of stand out to you after 25 years?
Well, I think at one point it was the first day of the first year, 1995. We kind of rolled in. I mean, it was a ragtag group of people with a great idea, but we had to make it work. And someone ran up. We had brought this climbing wall with us. Now people see climbing walls. Back then, we kind of built it like a house. And a young kid ran through the gates with a mohawk. So he was obviously coming to listen to some bands and have some fun. Yeah. And climbing wall, and he ran up and said, how much? And that's really stuck with me because I'm like, is that what we do? Is we ask right away how much? And I look, well, it's free. And the guy who ran the wall looked at me like goes, wait, how am I getting paid this summer? It's going to be free to do my wall. So we'll figure that out. And then we put up a little thing on it, rent this space to advertise, like, when you do something. No, but I realized that it was, it's about delivering value. And I especially think it's going to be important right now, that we're going to have to really start looking at, this is, to me, there's a big, everyone wants to go back. There's so many great shows going on. There's shows everywhere going on. Everyone's touring. There's not a venue open. But, some of these, waves of inflation, gas prices, people don't realize the psyche of America's economy runs on gas prices sometimes. That's what people can really understand about economy. You look at that sign driving by it every day. I drove by today and saw it drop 20 cents at my local gas station.
Whoa.
So all of a sudden the economy's getting better, right? In a lot of people's minds, but I think, I think the value propositions in the business right now are going to be very important to the fans. Ticket prices are way up. There are a lot of people out trying to make up the money maybe that was lost in 2020. Yeah. I always say that money was gone. Unfortunately, so many people think we can go make it back. That you just got to move forward almost. Yeah. And I think the artists, I'm seeing some good packaging going out right now. I'm excited to see that. Like that's going to be, but like seeing that bands like Less Than Jake, Bowling for Soup, and the Aquabats all packaged together. 3 bands could probably go headline clubs or venues on their own. Decided that it makes sense to play together. We'll make a little less money each by doing this tour together. But you know what? We're going to deliver a value to the fans. Yep.
Now, I think that's something important to keep in mind, whatever you're doing. We try to do that with interns that we have that come to work with us. Here's this is, you're not just going to go out and get coffee and, crunch papers or something. You got a chance to help build, a business and use your creative genius. So I think people are going to look for that more and more. Spoiler alert here, any future plans for another Warped event?
I don't know if you're ever going to... Who knows? You never want to say never. To be honest, I don't know if there would ever be a 30 or 40 city tour mounted of that size. I don't know if the economy of that tour, it was tricky, and people didn't realize that, the team that I had around me, we subsidized that tour to millions and millions of dollars from sponsors to be able to put that on the road.
Whoa.
But I never say never that something couldn't come back or be around in a different type of configuration or... I think that the community that was built around Warp for so many years, I think there's a place for that. And I've been sitting back kind of waiting to see if anyone can build that again. And so far, little things are there, but, it took, over 90% of the things we did on Warp Tour were never about making money. It was about the community.
And it was there, I can speak from just the small part we played and experienced. There was a community. And as we came those years in a row, it was like almost a reunion with some people and getting to know some of the bands. And of course, we interviewed them for some other stuff we did, individuals, and we were welcomed, and it really truly was a community. It was amazing. We always looked forward to it. It was, and you had a great crew, made us feel super welcome. And several people have said on the screen, if Warped comes back in any form, I'm there. So,
okay. All right,
we'll be there too. So, changing gears a little bit. The drum community, of which I'm part, lost another member in Taylor Hawkins.
Yes.
And the opioid crisis reared its ugly head again in a more prominent position. And, it's heartbreaking, especially for Taylor's wife and 3 kids. And, of course, the Foo Fighter family. I've been in enough bands, and you've been around enough bands. They're families, there's a connectedness there. This is a huge crisis that's facing our country. It's ruining lives, and it's claiming way too many young lives. And you and I both know there's been programs in the past. I won't mention them, but even in times when I was doing some of the school assemblies, some of those programs would bring me in, as part of what they were doing. But I love the phrase that I saw from you guys: too much preaching rather than empowering. And there's an awful lot of that.
Yeah, I think, I learned that. I worked on lots of benefit shows and things, and people were coming to, be entertained, basically. And even if it had, but if you gave the information or exposed them, and if people are having fun, and it's the same thing I say, the problem with schools sometimes whether it's an unsafe situation for a student or the stresses of it. When you're having fun, your mind is open to learn.
Yes.
So when I teach I'm trying to transfer that where the classes are as fun as engaging, and the students don't even realize that they're absorbing.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't sit there. I don't do multiple choice tests. They don't have to memorize. But I think it's like teaching is half entertaining as it is educating, and people don't realize. And that's the philosophy.
Absolutely.
And the philosophy of that in the parking lots, that, we're not going to sit here and beat this idea down. And we had multiple nonprofits out there. But you know what? If you're having a great time and a great day, mind is open to maybe checking something out. And very much like a classroom, in a classroom, if you have 100%, 90% of the people are coming and they're going to have a good time and they're going to enjoy it. Then I always said would over excel. And those people would over-excel by going and joining a nonprofit on a local area, bringing the canned food to the food drives, running a blood drive in their school. And I looked at it in some ways that it was a very large classroom, that if 10% of the people kind of overachieved by doing something a little extra or around the community, that was an extra 50 to 60,000 kids a year doing something that they never did before they went to a concert or while they were at a concert.
Sure.
And, we saw that, in the growth of nonprofits like To Write Love on Her Arms and Voice for the Innocent and some of these other, and some of those things going on.
Yeah.
And so it's really been important to me. And, the opioid crisis, it's interesting, especially pretty much within the last few months. It would have been 5 years ago. I had the founders of Narcan sitting in our backyard, and we were talking about, this opioid crisis. And fentanyl was just kind of in the gray area, the dark area, and just kind of floating out there. That there was a little push of fentanyl, but it kind of disappeared. Now it's coming back. They told me that in 5 years, all the drugs in America will have fentanyl in it.
Really?
Yeah, they said that, and it stuck with me. And if you look at it right now, we're almost 5 years to the day of when they said that. There's fentanyl. It's in. Fentanyl is what's killing people off, and there's a lot of things killing people off. But fentanyl, you don't get that luck. I mean, I hate to say luxury of experimentation. Before, if you did a drug, good chance either you could walk away from it if you chose.
Yeah.
And fentanyl, though, is killing people the first time they use a drug sometimes. And now they just, I guess in Orange County, I haven't even had a chance to read it. Every week it seems like at some border or somewhere, they're seizing larger and larger batches of fentanyl than in history. And they describe it as a table. I'm just sitting here with a little desk. It's maybe 3 feet by 2 feet. And I remember them telling me that you could put a thin layer of this on that desk and it could kill Manhattan. Every person in Manhattan.
Whoa.
And not to be like that shock fear, but
yeah.
Like, whoa. And, so that's where originally the Fend concept came up was maybe we could use gamification to educate people about opioids. So by creating a thing and making those alliances with the bands we did, where the water parks and some of those bands would do acoustic sets and We the Kings for the fans, we thought by making it fun, you can come in and be part of just educating people. And educating them. I don't think, I didn't run around telling people the story about the table because it doesn't work to scare people. We all learn that.
No,
this is your brain on drugs. We grew up and there was a frying pan with two, it didn't really scare people, but we have to educate people. And there's some question now around campus. They're giving test strips to be able to test your drugs, and there's some argument about what are we doing. And I go, ultimately, you're probably going to save some lives. Because young brains are not programmed. They're programmed for risk, right?
Right.
The adolescent brain, and the more and more you learn, is under 25. Some of us might say at 60 that we're never quite sealed as an adult, but first develop that, and they become can make more and more. That's why we make so many rash decisions at a younger age. We can't process risk. So that risk is going to be there, and people are going to take that risk. So I'm a big advocate of giving testing kits out and letting people, hopefully they're going to educate themselves that they may not want to do this, but
yes,
because the experience isn't necessarily good, but people shouldn't die the first time they try something. And now we've got this crazy methamphetamine that's hitting the streets right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and I saw, it was interesting because a young girl came to me this fall in one of my classes, and she was like, I could tell, you could tell that kid that might have been a warped kid at some point.
Yeah.
And I really liked her, and I just met her that first day in branding class. And she goes, I play music, and my friend said, so she gave me a QR code for some of her music. She died of an overdose that night after her first class. And I still keep that in my bag, and I look at her QR code and I go, why? What happened? Turned out there was a bad batch of drugs going around campus. And, a couple of years ago, we lost 6 students on campus. So to ignore and scare, we have to try to all work together to get through this. And through education and understanding where people are in their lives that might push them to do something. And then, of course, recovery. It can't just be 30 days. Our industry always screws up. Opioids, it takes a long time. You just can't put someone in rehab for 30 days and throw them back on the road.
No, absolutely. Well, I love the approach you're taking, and I totally concur. It's thinking long term, it's equipping, it's educating, it's empowering. And so many young adults that I have a chance to be with, I was at a teen summit just a couple weeks ago and talking about mental health, and some of this stuff came up, and listening to them. Don't just shove something in their face. Listen. Engage them, and then empower them to make those changes, to make better choices. The testing, I think, is brilliant. We're going to save some lives that way. We're definitely going to see some lives saved that way.
Absolutely. I think we've got to, and that's the problem as we get older. We talk at people instead of talking with them. Mm-hmm. One of the things, someone goes, teaching, how did you become a teacher? I go, by having a discussion with my students, not talking at them.
Ooh.
And I think we need to. And I don't know when it switches off with the majority of people, parents. Like, they were those kids. We all have
this. Yes.
I always say, when do they wake up and they can't remember what they were doing in their 20s or 15s? They maybe remember their great time playing football or being a cheerleader or a jock, but they don't remember all the impulsive decisions they made. You're processing everything in your life for the first time.
Yes.
That's what parents should be able to do, is help their kids and talk with them, not talk at them all the time.
No, absolutely. And listen to them. As you're talking with them, it's not a presentation, it's listening, and it's learning.
Because we've been talking, why don't we I don't know if anyone has any questions. I don't use Instagram Live enough to be able to see, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to, that's what I always tell my students. I can talk about it all day, but I don't know if I'm giving you what you came for, or if you would like something for me to address. Maybe you can put it out there and we can take a little bit with that, because, wow, this is going fast.
All right, you guys just heard Kevin. Questions? U-Talk's all about you talking to us. Okay, here we go. Any comments on the When We Were Young festival?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to going. That's a great lineup, actually, to be honest. Look, it's timing. It's timing for something like that. And I don't think it's like the Warped Tour. I don't know what their plans are for all the other activities going on. They've put together a great lot of bands. The timing was great. You got to think about the people that were like fans of My Chemical Romance in 2005, and maybe they're 15 to 18 years old, are in their mid to late 30s now. And coming out of this pandemic, there's a grab for nostalgia. We all see there's a movement. Nostalgia is very big. And by them choosing Las Vegas, people can go and have a great weekend. They're going to all have a great weekend. I thought it was strange that people thought maybe that I was involved, because one thing I saw was that with the ticket price, I don't think I could ever charge that. That's a pretty good ticket to get into that. But that's okay.
Yeah.
They sold out. If people buy it, it's supply and demand,
Yeah, no, that's the whole thing. Well, somebody just said it's basically a knockoff of the Warped Tour. So it doesn't sound like it.
Well, no, they grabbed a lot of great bands and put them all in one place. Look, I know the people putting it on, and Andy's a good person, and it's great. I'll bring my van up. Maybe that's what I'm going to be doing a lot this summer, traveling around the country. And I've actually contacted some of my old promoter friends and said, I'm going to be coming through your town on this day. And they say, well, we have a show. Do you want to come, Kevin? I go, I'd like you to save that same spot for me where I used to park my tour bus, so I can go backstage and whip out the barbecue and hang out with some of those old crews from the venues. So,
nice.
One place I know I'll be stopping is June at Blossom Amphitheater backstage at the Miranda Lambert Show. So people are hitting me up and saying, we have a show. Where are you going to be? And that itch to go on the road and travel the country, I'm just doing it in a different way. I'm getting
sure.
And I'm working on projects. I mean, I'm busier than ever, and that podcast I've been doing takes a lot of time. I'm consulting a couple people, and, we've actually shot a pilot. I say, man, Bands for Barbecue would be rule. Yeah, we actually shot a pilot on the podcast where we actually created the vibe of a Warped Tour barbecue in my backyard.
Nice.
Had bands played. We had a food section. We did some charity stuff. So you just have to channel your energy in a different way. I believe in young people, and I believe that a lot of times, and it's time for them to be given the chance, because a lot of us have screwed up this world, and I've tried to be nice to people, and maybe you guys will let me be the Walmart greeter of your events or something in the future. But,
the Walmart greeter. I'll stand opposite you. How's that?
Yeah. Do you see any questions there? Anything else people wanted to know?
Somebody called you a punk rock legend.
Well, I was able, and I say I was able to be around it as long as I have been, and you can be around things as long as you want to be around something if you don't take advantage of something. You can make a nice living, you can make a living within something, but you can't take advantage of a scene. And I think that's with punk rock. I think people respect people like Fat Mike, who's created some of his own events, things where bands have an opportunity to play. Brett Gurewitz, Epitaph Records, some of these people. And I think it's one of those things where I always felt like we were putting more in than we were taking out. Yes, I made a living that I never probably thought I could. But, I never felt like you got, I feel like when we left town, we tried to leave it a little better place and maybe a little more accepting of punk rock, because when we started Warped Tour, punk rock was like, punk rock, the scary part.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they saw that we were able to come in and we were doing good things for the community, and we were leaving the community, collecting canned food and things. And a lot of people, not many tours did that. So it was nice to feel that we opened the door, because punk rock was kind of popular on the coasts, maybe, big cities. But we were able to bring this music that I thought was so important to places like Las Cruces, New Mexico, and Boise, Idaho, and Missoula, Montana. I wanted the bands that were singing to my heart when I started it, the Bad Religions of the world, and the Pennywises, and I wanted more people the chance to hear them, because we weren't being played on the radio. The music wasn't mainstream in any way, shape, or form, and we just went out there and loaded up a skate and went out and brought the music to the fans. I see someone put Calgary, Alberta. Yeah, I love that racetrack we used to do up there. The racetrack was fabulous. They've torn a lot of these places down that we used to play, but that was always an awesome show. Like, we invested in an area, and Canada was a big part of the success of Warped Tour.
Really?
We always had we went up there in 1995, and we didn't know how to get across the border. And then as through the years went on, the border guards knew us a little bit. They actually were fans of the music, and we had some great, and we had a great time. So Canada was a fabulous part of our journey.
That's interesting, because we've done a lot of events. We haven't recently, obviously, but up in Canada, and developed some great friendships, and even got to know some of the border guards going across, or the customs people or whatever. So
we're exploring other ideas and maybe using technology to help with the opioid crisis. Will Warped Tour ever come back? I see someone asking.
Yeah.
I had said earlier, I don't know. Maybe in some sort of configuration. I just don't see it coming back as another 35, 40 city tour. It was tricky. It was constantly, I see Dylan's on there. Dylan talked to pass the bass, jumped on.
Yep.
Dylan's a good friend of mine who suffered a traumatic brain injury, and we would let him come down and he would do his T-shirts. His foundation is called Pass the Bass, and he's always out there trying to get artists to play his bass. He wanted to be a bass player and never really got to be one because he suffered, but he's been a big promoter of brain injury awareness. We just had a charity golf tournament. A couple weeks ago, I did a tournament that I put on each year for Music Cares, and we raised money. We just sent them a check today for $46,000 that was raised at that tournament.
Whoa.
And, had Dylan is a great advocate, and that's what it takes. I think,
yes,
everyone needs to, that community, there was room for people. You could come out there, and I think that's hopefully whoever takes a Warped flag. But like I said, when I started Warped Tour, people thought I was trying to copy Lollapalooza. And I said, no, I'm trying to create my own thing. And that's what I'm looking for. One of you are going to create your own thing that's going to capture the imagination of your peers. And that's kind of what ended up happening. Ended up making that thing go as long as it did.
I love what you're saying, like going the thing you said a moment ago about everybody's welcome. We were welcome, and it's true. It's true. It was there. It was just a big community, and we were having fun. We were having conversation. I remember bands inviting, hey, are you going to come see us? I'm going to be on at this time, and I'd be right in the front in the pit, and, hey, you came. Well, yeah, of course I wanted to come. You're my friend, I'm enjoying this. And there was just a whole different vibe that I hadn't seen before or experienced. And I really enjoyed it. It was really cool.
Asked me about Greta Van Fleet. I know Greta Van Fleet. The person who signed them is a good friend of mine, Jason Flom. He works with him, but I also really know Jason Flom. He was the president of Lava Records, who back in the day, he's the one who first turned me on to Katy Perry. I was looking for a movie once, and he goes, what about, and I go, oh my God, I needed to have her on my tour in 2008. And this is before anyone kissed a girl or anything. But, Jason is very cool, and he runs a project called the Innocence Project about wrongfully convicted people in prison. Lucky enough to have him on my podcast as a guest recently, and was able to interview 3 people who were wrongfully convicted. One person did 35 years in prison, 10 years on death row for something innocent of. So, it's interesting. People in our industry might do really well, but I'm really gravitated to and very interested in the people who also use what they can through our music to do good in the world and do something a little more. There's a lot of people, and I guess we base a lot of our success in this world on money, on how much money people have, but it's what they do when they have some influence, really, because that influence is waning. There's going to be, when people have that moment, they need to grab onto it and make something happen, and hopefully that's better for society.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're really big on being the change, going mad, making a difference. You've got something you can use, whatever it is, make a difference, change things. If we all come together like that and we do it individually, we're going to see things change that need to change and have this attitude of acceptance and community. And it may be a little different, obviously, than walking through the gates at a Warped Tour, but it can still happen.
I think it's funny. Someone just reminded me of the glam bus that Katy Perry had. They had put a big photo of her, like out of a tour bus.
Yeah.
On a promoter record and everything. And I think they learned the lesson that don't put your face on the side of the tour bus, because as her popularity gained, and there's so many people backstage that maybe wanted to find her, all the other buses kind of blended in, but her big face on the side. Oh yeah, it's right there. Oh yeah, they didn't even have to come to any other bus for someone to say where Katy Perry was hanging out.
I think it's here right there. Hey, somebody just asked, what was the worst behaving band that you had at Warped? Was there such a thing?
Look at the lines were pretty wide of acceptance out there.
Yeah.
A lot of lines were accepted out there pretty wide. It's when they drifted out of those lines. It was usually when they disrespected the tour as a whole, or the community as a whole. Most of there was a lot of acceptance of people and things out there. There was one band that disrespected the production truck one time. He peed in the back of the truck.
Oh,
that's like disrespecting everyone's band gear that had to go in the back of the truck.
Yep.
So there was times that I would have to send the band away for a couple days.
Huh?
And it was like, but then there was this band, and then this band would get on stage and bag all the sponsors. It's like, I said, you don't need to bag all the sponsors. You don't have to say anything about them, but you're sitting there and eating their food, and you're drinking their products, and then you stand on stage and bag on them. That's to me hypocritical.
Yep,
like,
absolutely.
from punk rock, and there was bands that would not play Warped Tour, and I was cool with that. Totally respected that. It wasn't their thing. That was great. But to come out there and then disrespect the community was hypocritical. So I actually pulled the band aside and said, look, I would give you the money to go buy posters and pens and Sharpies, whatever you need, if you want to stand outside the Warped Tour and protest us. That's punk rock. Standing up and bagging the people that are feeding you, that's just a bunch of hypocrites.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very hypocritical.
Alien Ant Farm, they just made the mistake of, when I booked a band on a certain stage, that's where they would play. There was no, like, my record got bigger, I need to be moved. But he felt that he needed to be put on another stage because they were selling a lot of singles with that Michael Jackson cover. And he came up to me and said, we need to be moved to the main stage. And I said, well, you're going to have to go ask someone, get off that main stage.
Yeah.
And I said, who would that band be? And it was pretty funny because they said H2O. H2O is a hardcore band out of New York City. I was also managing the band at the time, so I thought this was pretty funny. And I didn't have to say a word. I said, yeah, go ask him. And the kid gave him guts. He walked right up to him when he was hanging out with Pennywise and Rancid and a bunch of other friends and said, you need to move off the main stage and let us there. I had to put him into protective custody for a People were going to, there's a little bit of street justice out there at times, to be honest, a little bit. Nothing. There was street justice when people, but not horrible street justice, just in a sense. So I put him in protective custody for a little bit, and it all.
I love it. Having to put somebody in protective custody at Warped. That's great.
Yeah.
Somebody asked earlier, what was the worst venue on tour?
Probably, I'm trying to think. You could go to Florida, pretty much any Fat Harry venue. He was one of our promoters down there, and he would find the craziest places for us to play. He would I've got a new venue. It was like a racetrack where there was no road into the racetrack. You had to go over, and you couldn't get the trucks over. That was one time I remember. And then it rained all day, so it turned into a swamp, and we had to get a truck of hay in to just make it usable. He put one down by a boat dock once that was on basically oyster shells. The whole venue was on oyster shells. But I would say some of those Florida shows, usually one and done shows. We do it one year, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Somebody
wants to know, how much does it cost to take your class?
It's part of a curriculum. It's part of a 4-year study. I teach 5 classes now, branding, marketing, festival design, management. But I do these kind of things all the time. I speak for free and give out free information a lot too, This allows us to kind of, what was your favorite band? Oh my gosh, that's for me, it was at one point, every time Rancid would come out, there was a band I wanted to go see. And later on, there was bands like Wallpaper, Ricky Reed's band, and they weren't the truth, but my gosh, they were fun. And people, I'd just go and watch everyone walking by their stage, not knowing who they were, and like turning around and going, I have to see this band. It was fun because I never really kind of judged the bands, because as we went later on with the tour, those were singing to the young people's hearts the same way those bands sang to mine that started on Warped Tour. They were singing the same way and touching me. Oh, thank you on the ADA access. Yeah, we worked real hard at it. Made us really tricky on some of the venues. But, I mean, my staff was taught that if they saw someone in need, slap a wristband on them, help them out. They deserve to have the show. And some of our sites were tricky, by moving along the way we did. And I think, also it was always great to see the fans helping each other out. And the time I saw people, if someone was in need, someone would step up. It was maybe not, hopefully it was someone that worked for me, but if not, it was usually someone in the fans that did that. But
oh, nice. I love the parent drop-off tent.
Yeah, that was, a lot of people ask me where that came from, and that really came from when we were touring in places like Montana and Wyoming, where punk rock was scary. Like literally what scared me was a guy in a cowboy hat, but that's what everyone wore there. But it was parents wouldn't, so I saw them all sitting along a fence one day, and I go, why? They go, well, we were worried about our kids coming to the show. It's, maybe they were relating it to something they went to, maybe something they were at. And I said, well, maybe we can create a tent. You drop your parents off. We'll watch them while you have a good time.
All right, guys. We're going to say goodbye to Kevin for now so we can get back to the capstone stuff he's working on. Kevin, we'll have to do this again. This is rich conversation. Enjoyed it very, very much. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. If people want to learn more about Fend, what's the best way to do that?
Well, Fend is actually kind of on hold right now, to be honest. We're trying to retweaking it up right now. Some new plans. We've got some more technology kind of things, an idea. It'll be coming out. Right now, we're mostly, I think we need to address really what's going on with the whole opioid or with the fentanyl issue right now. So that was a lot of fun to jump on this evening. I'm going to jump out, and I have to go have my Zoom calls with some students before I go to bed. Start this all over again tomorrow. I'm cooking for 55 of my graduate students on Saturday at my house. All the graduates.
Oh, wow. That sounds good. What are you serving?
Well, in true backstage barbecue tradition, we're doing a nice teriyaki chicken. I'm going to do some of those ribs people always enjoyed when I did on Warp. We're going to do some salmon on some planks, and we'll have a lot of good vegetarian food.
Ooh, sounds good. So, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you,
everyone.
It's
just been really rich. So, guys, check out what Kevin's doing with the podcast and other things, and be aware. We'll try to let you know when Fend is back. Put the word out. And remember, you can make a comment, question, go to utalkradio.com, text the word UTalk to 411-247, and at social at UTalk Radio. Thanks, Kevin.
Bye.
This is UTalk Radio.